The goal of this video is to prove that all, or at least most, of the mainline Studio Ghibli films are set in a single universe and can be placed in a specific timeline order. If you're interested in the exceptions to this list, check the video description. Let's begin. The Tale of the Princess Kaguya is based on a Japanese book named The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, written sometime in between the 9th and 10th centuries and set in a similar period. Princess Mononoke is placed at some point in time during the Muromachi period in Japan. This period was characterized by battles between rival warlords and rampant banditry, as evidenced in the film. Castle in the Sky takes place around the 1870s or 1880s, judging from the date inscribed on the photo Potsu's father took of the flying city, an undisclosed number of years prior. We know that it takes place on Earth because Colonel Muska references the Old Testament by name. The Wind Rises follows the life of an aeronautical engineer, beginning shortly after the end of the First World War. We witnessed the 1923 Kanto earthquake early on in the film. The film ends during the Second World War as Jiro's planes are being sent off to battle. The Boy and the Heron begins during the second year of the Pacific War, 1943, and ends several years later. Grave of the Fireflies is set in Japan, in the aftermath of the firebombings conducted by the US Air Force during World War II. While there is little else to say about its placement on the timeline, it provides a tragic perspective of the effect the war had on Japanese civilians. My Neighbor Totoro contains multiple internal inconsistencies regarding the year of its setting, but it certainly takes place in between 1950 and 1955 in the Japanese countryside. From Up on Poppy Hill occurs during the year leading up to the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, which places it squarely in 1963. Only Yesterday takes place across a time span of 16 years, detailing Taeko's life in Tokyo from 1966 to 1982. The development of Tama Hills, the main source of conflict for the film Poko, took place beginning in the late 60s and ending in the early 90s. Ocean Waves contains two references to another movie that could be taken in several ways. First, a poster for the Porco Rosso movie, which would seem to imply a fourth wall break, potentially placing Ocean Waves in a world one step removed from the other films, or Porco Rosso as a film in the world of Ghibli films. But then we also see Marco in the flesh, eating at a table. In the end of Porco Rosso, Marco's curse is broken, and he returns to being a human. The pig eating at the table could easily be explained away as a publicity stunt for the film's release. These two films are almost certainly mutually exclusive. If one is real, then the other isn't. As much as it pains me to say it, I don't think Porco Rosso has a place on the timeline. This places Ocean Waves in the year of Porco Rosso's Japanese release, 1992. Whisper of the Heart takes place in the Tama Hills development, around 1994, and after the events of Poko, referenced by Shizuku in her parody song, Concrete Roads. While the exact region is unclear, Spirited Away most certainly takes place in Japan, shortly following the economic crash of Y2K. Speaking about the abandoned theme park, Chihiro's father says, "It is likely set in the year of its release, 2001. While the location is never explicitly stated in the film, it's common knowledge that Miyazaki took inspiration for Ponyo's setting from the Japanese port town of Tomonora. The timing is also difficult to pin down. In one scene, we see the spine of a book labeled 2006, but more importantly, we get a shot of a calendar. While this calendar doesn't show a year, it does tell us that the 1st of July fell on a Sunday, which means it likely took place in either 2007 or 2012. It's very common for Ghibli's films to be set in a time period similar to that of their release year, and Ponyo was released in 2008. I would consider 2007 the most likely culprit. While the source material for Arrietty, a novel called The Borrowers, set the story in 1950s England, the studio decided to set the film adaptation in present-day Japan, which was, at the time of the film's release, the year 2010. The prefecture of Kogane is a half-hour drive away from the city of Tama, the setting of 2 prior films. At first blush, it might seem oddly specific for 3 of their films to be set within a 10-mile radius, but the truth is more sentimental. The studio has been based in Kogane since 1992. When Marnie Was There is another difficult placement. We get a shot of Yoriko's foster care reimbursement for Anna's education. The most recent billing was in December of 2013 for admissions the following spring, while the movie takes place in the summer immediately after, in 2014. The little-known short film, Giant God Warrior Appears in Tokyo, occurs sometime after the events of When Marnie Was There, but prior to the downtrend of keypad phones in Tokyo, likely between the years 2015 and 2018. In the film, a young woman describes her encounter with a specter of her brother who warned her about the oncoming apocalypse. A god warrior appears overhead, hovering, unfathomably large, laying the entirety of Shibuya into shadow. It crashes to the ground, and in mere minutes reduces the entire ward to a smoking ruin. Minutes later, more warriors appear, and the rest of Tokyo follows suit. We witness a scene that mirrors exactly the vision of the 7 Days of Fire from Nosaka. This short provides a direct link between the real world and the world of the toxic jungle. But it does seem rather sudden, doesn't it? It wouldn't make sense for the godlike destructive technology displayed in the God Warriors to have been created overnight, would it? No, it wouldn't. And it doesn't have to. Because the technology behind the God Warriors has existed for over 4,000 years. We've seen the power to levitate massive objects, the prototypes of destructive proton beam weapons, and we've even seen the mechanical precursors to these biological machines. The answer is simple. Terrible. Someone found the origin of power that produced Laputa and the other flying cities, and they used this power to usher in an infernal apocalypse. But who would do this, and why? It's uncertain. The threads of history are lost in the darkness between this and the next timeline entry. 1,000 years have passed since the 7 Days of Fire. This would place us roughly in the 31st century. The fox squirrels present on Laputa appear once again, while many animals of the former world are no more. It would seem that most, if not all, non-domestic mammals have died out. The survival of the fox squirrels is a mystery worth looking into later. As it stands, the world is in ruin, and there remain few surviving relics from the old world, the God Warrior being chief among them. And yet, in spite of it all, we see the persistence of the human spirit in the young princess, the constant battle against fear, the refusal to turn one's back to the wall, and a pure, nurturing instinct that might just yet nurse a broken world back to life. In creating this timeline, I found more questions than answers. What is the true origin of Laputa, and how does it tie in with world mythology? How did the 7 Days of Fire come about, and what happened in the following millennium? If you're also interested in the answers to these questions, please leave positive feedback, and perhaps I'll make a follow-up video. Maybe these films weren't meant to be placed on a timeline, but isn't it human nature to find and create patterns? Even if only as a thought exercise, I enjoyed this project very much. I hope you had as much fun watching it. Thank you.